sophomore year of high school I would describe as kind of the lowest point in my mental health. I was very sad all the time. I kind of felt that I was really strange and I wasn't connecting that well with my peers. And I just felt that I had lost something that I had once had. I kind of was drawn to the idea of the inner child kind of naturally because I remembered that time as probably the best times of my life. My parents would always talk about how I was such an easygoing kid and how I was so happy all the time. And so when I was at my lowest, I knew that there was a way to achieve that because I had done it before. But the concept of the inner child, which is rooted in Carl Jung's psychology, is something that when explored in modern pop psychology, as you've probably heard it, is really just rooted in consumerism. You can buy connecting with your inner child by buying a Labubu. But for me personally, it's gone way beyond that. And I want to explore how Jung kind of describes it and how I kind of personally naturally went towards it, because it's a process that really honestly helped me a lot in my mental health journey. Now, in the first step, Jung kind of describes this step as looking back at your actual history as a child. For me personally, I was in obviously the depths of my sadness and I wanted something that would easily make me feel better. And I knew that when I was younger, feeling good kind of came easy. So I kind of regressed to the nostalgic things that I knew that I inherently liked. I remember when I was a kid, I was really hardcore. I liked hard rock, I liked violent video games, I liked weird clothing, and I liked to read. And those were all things that I kind of repressed because I felt that they made me seem like, an earlier version of myself, and I wanted to assert myself as an adult. But there was really no harm in, indulging in these things. And psychology has actually shown that indulging in nostalgia not only increases social interconnectedness, increases self-confidence, but also decreases bitterness and depressive thoughts. Beyond that, though, I wanted to look back on where I thought I would be at this point. I wanted to reevaluate my goals. At that point, I thought that by now, which obviously sophomore year of me, I would have a lot more friends, I'd be going out more, and I would be doing more extracurriculars, I'd be putting myself out there more. And those were things that I realized I wasn't doing. And beyond that also, you have to look back to see what kind of roots have made the negative self-thoughts that you have now kind of like repeat themselves. Obviously, that's the part of the whole inner child thing that psychologists probably talk about the most, and that most people are probably more knowledgeable about if they know it past the consumerist aspect. But for me personally, I found that when I was young, I really felt very deep rejection when people would reject me in a social setting. And that was sort of an underlying problem that I had continuously carried on through the rest of my life. And so with that, I kind of took on more meditative approaches and thought about the thought patterns that I was repeating and that were holding me back. And then in the second step, Jung kind of describes this as an antithesis to the depressive nature of the first step, which is to indulge in all of the best aspects of the child archetype. Now, Jung kind of meant this in a more metaphorical sense, but everything that he kind of wrote about came to me very naturally. For one aspect of the child archetype is unarbitrated confidence. And I remember when I was a kid, I was incredibly confident. Even if you don't consider yourself necessarily to have been a very confident kid, in a study done that placed children in a simulated gambling experiment, they consistently were overconfident, even to levels similar to Wall Street bankers. And in addition to that, the child represents a kind of social interconnectedness and a time in your life where you have your whole life ahead of you and where you're like surrounded by creativity and nothing's holding you back. And in this process, I also really reconnected with deeper empathy, not just for myself, because obviously that's one part of the process, because I was thinking so negatively about myself and not giving myself any empathy. But in that process, I realized, well, if I'm young and if I'm doing things wrong, but I can have empathy for myself, other people are going through the exact same things. And that made me just take things a lot less personally and also feel better about the people around me. Now, this stage is a blissful one, and Jung kind of argues against staying in this stage because obviously if you're only being empathetic towards yourself even though you do things wrong, and you're not actually putting any of these ideas into practice into adult life, you become what Carl Jung describes as stubborn, and what anyone who knows what someone they would consider an adult child is, you know that's not a good thing. So once you feel that you've gotten to a sense of feeling more grounded and feeling better, you move on to the third step, which is to take all that you've learned and put that into practice in your actual adult life. Now, for me, this meant a lot of taking personal accountability. I wasn't moving towards the goals that I wanted to, and I had to put myself out there. I was more involved in my school. I took risks with the activities that I did. I did the fashion week for my state, and I just was more confident in myself, but actually worked towards the goals that I wanted. But beyond that, a lot of the problems that I had were with other people. They were social, and a lot of them were with my family. And I kind of acknowledged my part in that. I wasn't communicating enough, and obviously, if anyone knows what a teenager is like, you know that we can be very irrational. So I kind of had to relook at what I was doing wrong. But one great thing that I took out of this was the importance of acknowledging creativity. It was Picasso that said, "It took me 4 years to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to learn how to paint like a child." And he also said that every child is an artist. The problem is to figure out how to still be an artist when you're an adult. And this was something that I really especially resonated with. I kind of left my creative activities to the wayside, even though they brought me so much joy. In studies done about play, obviously children naturally are more drawn to play activity, and that's incredibly important in their development. There's even therapies such as sand tray play, which kind of mimic these patterns in adults. But when it comes to play in adults, you see this mostly in creative activities. The same kind of neurological pathways happen in creative activities as an adult. And so involving myself with these more has a proven psychological benefit to make you feel better. And it also led me to kind of, the whole process of the inner child is supposed to be one that brings you with your more subconscious self of being, with something that's more intrinsic towards you. And I really felt that. I was able to understand more abstract concepts in literature, movies, art, and so on, a lot more. And I just had an overall appreciation for my life that I didn't have prior to going through this process. And the point of this all is to say that you don't have to reject a part of yourself just because you're an adult. It's important to acknowledge every part of your being, and your childhood self was one that is crucial to who you are today and to who you consider yourself as on the deepest level. Thank you.